Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy, coming to you solo this evening. Yes, schedule conflicts with Rob leads to me going solo on this podcast, but it's okay. We still have an excellent show for you. And today on the podcast, we are going to be talking a lot about our fall movie preview. So we're going to be previewing movies that are coming out between now and the end of the year. And I'm going to give you a few of my favorites that I'm looking forward to, as well as some ones that maybe you haven't heard of yet. So hopefully that will be really fun and interesting. And let's jump right in. So first up, we're not going to spend too much time on the box office itself. There's not a whole lot going on over the past couple of weeks. But The Exorcist Believer, in its first week in the box office, showed up at number one, and it did almost 26.5 million in the box office for this week. As we've talked about, that's kind of right in line with kind of a standard horror movie number that especially lately, ones that are kind of franchises, as The Exorcist is, can pretty much guarantee that you're going to get between 25 and 29 million, somewhere in that range. And so this one hits it right at 26.5. So solid take for The Exorcist Believer. 11 million for Paw Patrol in its second week. Saw X did 7. At number 4 was The Creator at 6.2, and then The Blind at 3.2. So that was the previous weekend's box office. Opening this weekend is one movie, and as if she wasn't already dominating absolutely everything else and every other topic of conversation over the last 6 months, Taylor Swift, the new Eras Tour movie came out this weekend. As with everything else with Taylor does, it's expected to make a pretty good amount of money. As I record this, the projections for Taylor Swift's new Eras Tour movie is about $96 million. So that's the biggest release we've seen in a number of months here. Not to the surprise of anybody that Taylor Swift is making money on her movie. I would really be curious to see. I'm guessing that at least half of the people who are going to see the Taylor Swift or Eras movie are people who already went to see her concerts. That's my guess. People were trying to relive the moments, if you were. But there probably are some out there who did not get tickets or did not spend half of their waking salary on Taylor Swift tickets. So yeah. So that is your main new box office entrance, Taylor Swift, the new Eras Tour. And that will be in all of the box offices, of course. And now, talking about mid-fall box office preview. That's right. We have the mid-fall box office preview. We like to do these from time to time where we will go through and we will give you a preview of the movies that are coming out over the next month or so, or next couple months, I should say. And in this case, we're going to do movies that are coming out like from mid-October through the end of December. So about 2.5 months worth of movies, the remainder of the fall movie slate leading up into Christmas. And personally, this is my favorite time of year for movies. The summer blockbusters are great. They come out. They have great opportunities. There's always some good, fun movies to go see over the summer. But the late fall here is really, really where I think some of the best movies come out. At least they have in the past. Post-pandemic, it hasn't been quite the same as it was previously. Because usually what you get during this time period is you get some of the really good dramas. You get some really good dramas. You get some really good sci-fi movies. You get movies that are a little deeper, that have a little bit more esoteric qualities to them. And this is where you get some of the really fascinating ones. A lot of the ones that end up on my list, my year end list, probably more than half of them at times have come during the fall segment of the year. There's just generally some really good movies. There tend to be ones that are not like the big blockbusters that are drawing everybody to the box office, but tend to just be solid movies, solid dramas. They start to release some of the ones that are, projected to win be nominated for Oscars and be up for some awards. Will sometimes come out during this particular period of time. So it's a really fun time. It's a really fun time for movies. And there are some really interesting, fascinating movies coming out um, over the next couple months. So I thought I would give you a few highlights of what ones that I am looking for. Um, there are some surprises on here for me personally, and I will dialogue on those. And there are some I will give you that um, I'm not 100% sure about, but could be interesting. So let's start with the first one I'm going to recommend, or the first one I'm curious about. I'll say this one. We'll start right off with one that I'm curious about, but I'm not sure if I'm actually going to like it or not. And that would be October 20th comes out Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, this one is directed by Martin Scorsese. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Jesse Plemons, Lily Gladstone, and Cantu Cardinal. And this is based on the best-selling novel by the same name, and uh, it's kind of about um, it's a Western setting theme, and it's a little bit about kind of the relationships between um, people of that era and the Native Americans, and so there's a lot to that, of course, and Martin Scorsese is reprising with another Leonardo DiCaprio movie. These two have paired up several times before: Wolf of Wall Street, The Departed, just to name a few. So this is a classic combination of these two back to back. They usually end up nominated for Oscars whenever they are working together. So you can bet that there will probably be Oscar nominations from Killer of the Flower Moon. The subject matter and like the general Western theme of it doesn't particularly intrigue me. Like the setting of this one really doesn't particularly intrigue me or interest me that greatly. However, Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio are always hits, and the movies they produce tend to be quite good. Uh, so that aspect has me a little bit intrigued. The downside is going to be the runtime on this one. I want to make sure that I have this correct, but this one has a pretty long runtime, if I am not mistaken. And I'm looking here, and 3 hours 26 minutes. Yep, 3 hours 26 minutes. This continues a trend that we've seen over the last couple of years of just insanely long movies coming out. I can almost guarantee you right off the bat that this movie doesn't need to be 3.5 hours long. I can do that. It doesn't need to be 3.5 hours long. Unless you're doing some sort of absolutely epic, massive thing like Gettysburg, for instance. Your movie does not need to be 3.5 hours long. So many movies now have been coming out have really, really been pushing the bounds on the runtime for these. And I just think like people don't have that much time to go spend the movie. If you're intrigued with it, unless you're like completely sold up on going to see this movie, if you're just a massive fan, uh, it's long enough that it's going to be a little bit prohibitive for you if you're not completely sold on the movie. And there's almost no way you can't tell your story in less time than that. So it seems to me to just be directors, especially directors who have given too much of a leash, who need an editor to come in and say, no, 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 this can be better at least a half hour, 45 minutes shorter, and then work towards that. I think the movies generally are better when they are shorter. especially shorter than 3 hours. I've generally thought if a movie is going to be over 2 hours and 40 minutes, there better be a dang good reason for it. And I'm not sure Killers of the Flower Moon will have it. But uh there's some interesting thoughts there. So that's going to be the first one. The first one that's a bit intriguing to me is Killers of the Flower Moon. The next one I'm going to reference here is it comes out November 10th, and this is The Killer. The Killer. Another famous director here, David Fincher, and starring Michael Fassbender, Tilda Swinton, Carrie O'Malley, and Charles Parnell. Now, this is a Netflix movie, and I will come back to my thoughts on the whole Netflix movie thing. But the basic plot here is following up on his Oscar-winning Mank for Netflix. David Fincher turns to something a little darker. We don't know much about this film yet, but it's a neo-noir thriller based on a French graphic novel. So that's it really there's some intrigue in this one. There definitely is some intrigue in this one. It really looks like it has a little bit of a dark side to it. It's definitely of a thriller nature, but Michael Fassbender is always really, really good. David Fincher is, I would say, probably my third favorite director, perhaps. Has done so many good movies, and um, he's always known for making quality movies that are intriguing. And so this one looks like a winner for me. It's probably up there for one of the ones I'm most looking forward to, um, which is interesting because it is a Netflix movie. And I will have more thoughts on it being a Netflix movie when I get to another one that's later on the list. Um, Next one I'm looking forward to is The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So this is another one from the Hunger Games universe, and this one comes out November 17th. Starring Tom Bly, Rachel Zegler, Peter Dinklage, Jason Schwartzman, Viola Davis, amongst others. And um, this one is a prequel based on the novel by the same name from Susan Collins. And the story follows a young Cornelius Snow and his involvement in the Hunger Games as a game-changing mentor years before the events of the original series. So if I'm not mistaken, this is sometime around when the first Hunger Games took place, if I remember correctly. But this is a prequel to the original ones, and it follows a young Snow. Now, Snow, of course, was the president in the Hunger Games trilogy that came out a number of years ago, and he was like the leading villain character in this one. Uh, I actually really did enjoy the Hunger Games movies. I thought they were very solid. They were well done. They were good adaptations of the book and the original source material, and I thought they generally speaking got to the right themes of the movies and what they were trying to achieve. I thought they did a good job on that. And for a long time afterwards, everyone was still trying to find the next Hunger Games, like that next great young adult trilogy that was coming along. We did an episode on that a while back about why no one has been able to find the next great young adult trilogy. But people are still trying to replicate it. So, Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, November 17th. The next one on a kind of completely different spectrum is Next Goal Wins. Next Goal Wins is directed by Taika Waititi, who did Jojo Rabbit and has done a number of the Thor movies, amongst other things. But this comes out November 17th. It stars Michael Fassbender. It's the second one on the list. So Michael Fassbender, Elizabeth Moss, Will Arnett. And this is a this is a significant departure from Thor: Love and Thunder, as it were. But this follows. It was a documentary from 2015 that this is based off of, And it's the story of the Dutch soccer coach Thomas Rongen, who is a pretty famous coach in the soccer world, and he is hired to help turn around American Samoa's national team, considered the worst national team in the world. And so Thomas Rongen, the story follows Thomas Rongen as he tries to rebuild one of the worst teams in the world. And it looks funny, it looks interesting, and kind of lighthearted. Uh, so if you're into a sports movie and a good feel good sports movie, I think Next Goal Win should be fun. It's been a while since we've had a good sports movie, so I think Next Goal Win looks intriguing. Uh, Next up would be the one I would say I'm most looking forward to of any movie. Uh, Now that Dune Part Two has been pushed till next year, and that is Napoleon. Napoleon comes out November 22nd. And this stars Joaquin Phoenix, Vanessa Kirby, uh, Tahar Rahim, Ludivine Sanier, and Ben Miles. And this is a pairing of Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix. Again, of course, the two of them uh, di- directed and acted in Gladiator in the year 2000 with spectacular results. And so Ridley Scott is back at the historical dramas, in this case on Napoleon. And this one is produced by Apple and um, will be hitting theaters on November 22nd. And so this is, of course, a movie about the famous French general. And it will be chronicle Napoleon's rise to power, told through the lens of his volatile relationship with his wife Josephine. Apparently, there's going to be some pretty big action sequences, which Ridley Scott's kind of known for, so I'm not surprised there. But Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon is, man, yeah, it's going to be right up there. And so I'm very intrigued about Napoleon, and it's going to be fantastic. So if you have not seen the trailer for Napoleon, make sure you look it up. I will link to, by the way, I'm pulling these from an article from Rotten Tomatoes. And so I will link to this article in the description of the episode, and you can click on that. And there's a number of other films that they're previewing on there, and decide which ones are going to be the best for you. So next one I'm going to preview is Leave the World Behind. Okay. Leave the World Behind is directed by Sam Esmail. And Sam Esmail was the writer, director, producer of the Mr. Robot series on USA, which I mean is one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. The Mr. Robot, really, really deep and fantastic series that I highly recommend. But he is back directing a movie, and this one's called Leave the World Behind, starring Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke, Kevin Bacon, amongst others. And this one comes out December 10th on Netflix. So this is the second Netflix film I am recommending. This one will also have a limited release in theaters. So you will get this in some theaters for a short period of time. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. And I'm not sure it's really been announced yet exactly what that's going to look like. But Netflix has started putting a few of their movies a little bit more into theaters, but sometimes they have not run for particularly long periods of time. So we'll give you an update on what that looks like coming into theaters. But no, December 10th, it will be on Netflix. And so this is kind of an intriguing thriller based on the novel by the same name. And it's about a family whose vacation at an Airbnb is interrupted by the property owners who have arrived with news of a mysterious widespread blackout. So this is definitely along the lines of kind of an apocalyptic thriller mystery type movie. And I think it's got a lot of intrigue behind it. So if you like thrillers, if you like mystery type movies, you're gonna want to check this one out and check out the trailer for this one as well. Really interesting along those lines. So that's Leave the World Behind. The next one I will promote is Rebel Moon Part One: A Child of Fire. Uh, Again, what we're seeing here is themes, big directors putting out interesting looking movies this fall, and this one is no exception. Zack Snyder directs this one, and if you watch the trailer, it is very, very Zack Snyder. It stars Charlie Hunnam, Sophia Boutelle, uh, Michelle Hussman, Carrie Elwes, Jenna Malone, Jimon Hanso, Donna Bay. December 22nd on Netflix. Also, this one will also get a limited theatrical run. Not sure what that means either. Uh, so, after the success of Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's next project on Netflix in this space is based on the original story of Snyder's own. So this is a story that Zack Snyder wrote himself. The story centers on a peaceful colony who, threatened by a tyrant, send a young woman to a neighboring planet to recruit an army. So Zack Snyder back directing and writing his own material and his own content. It looks really interesting. It looks like a cool visual sci-fi epic. Um, Obviously, being Zack Snyder, will have a little bit of a dark twinge to it. But if you've seen any Zack Snyder movies, you'll get a feel for what the visual look is going to be on this one. I will stop here and say and talk a little bit about. As I was picking these out, I was both intrigued and bothered by the fact that I have three Netflix films on here. And I will tell you why. One, because I have never found Netflix films to be particularly of high quality. I felt like, in general, Netflix has put out a lot of junk and has bloated their content library with lots and lots of stuff that's not particularly good. So it was been hard for me to get into Netflix films, as it were. So from that aspect, I was like, does this mean Netflix is turning the corner for me where they're starting to produce some really good films? Maybe, maybe yet to be seen. The other aspect of this is I really, really like going to see movies I'm interested in the theaters. And the way Netflix does this is you're going to be lucky to find in theaters. They'll release some of them, they'll be limited releases. Chances are they'll probably only be in certain big cities or certain theaters or something like that. And they might have a pretty limited release. Now, the one exception with this was Glass Onion. They did release Glass Onion, but they only released it for like a weekend. It had a fairly wide release, a reasonably wide release anyway, but it was only for a weekend. And so you had to go see it that weekend or you were going to miss it in theaters. And I think they're missing out on a lot of opportunity, both to make money and to present their films in the format that they would be designed for, particularly like Rebel Moon. Like this film looks to me like it's screaming to be watched on a big screen. And to not necessarily always have that option, not looking forward to that. So that comes out December 22nd. So I really wish, and it hasn't quite been announced what Netflix was doing. I'm hoping that it will get a bigger release for some of these Netflix movies than what we're seeing elsewhere. For instance, Napoleon, produced by Apple Plus, that's going out wide release in theaters. So I hope and I wish Netflix would kind of adjust their model to be allow us to see these things in theaters a little more easily. But maybe it does show a sign that they're starting to produce some pretty good content. The fact that I'm intrigued by several of these movies. Now, it remains to be seen whether they'll be actually any good or not, but hopefully they will. So the last one I'm going to tell you about is, of course, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is your Christmas release of this year. James Wan is back to direct again, and of course Jason Momoa, Amber Heard is back, Patrick Wilson is back, amongst others. Comes out Christmas Day, as I said, and this is a return of Aquaman, and so Aquaman has to deal with the fallout of everything that has happened, and I am intrigued by this movie. I liked the first Aquaman. I thought it was one of the better movies DC put out of their recent amounts. However, the ones that they have put out recently are not particularly good. And I'm kind of intrigued as to whether the Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will actually uh, bring an audience. It's got a wide release. It's going to be on Christmas Day. It's going to be one of the main ones people want to go to. I'm not sure if they're setting themselves up for failure on this one or not, but it remains to be seen. However, I'm still intrigued by Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Um, Jason Momoa has been quite good in the movies that he's been in, and I'm hoping for his sake and for the hopefully the hope of any sort of decent DC movies coming up in the future that this movie does reasonably well. Uh, so, so that's a good rundown for you for fall movies. I will link to the article in the description notes and make sure you check it out. There's going to be a number of great movies in the box office this fall. So if you haven't make your plans, pick the ones you want to go see, and definitely get out to the theaters and see them. That will be it for this edition of Film for Fans. And Rob will hopefully be back with us next week, and we will do a full rundown on our normal podcast feed. So thank you for checking out Film for Fans. Make sure you visit filmforfans.com, like our YouTube page, all that good stuff. Until next time, enjoy the movies.